is inhuman. This is just, this is godly.
Multiple myeloma is a poster child for what everybody hates about cancer. Bone destruction, pain, and deformity, kidney failure, having to go on dialysis, infection, pneumonia.
I could hardly breathe. I was always running out of air. And to get to the point where I am today, where I'm able to cycle, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma in June 2011, and today it's 2014, and I'm fortunate that I'm in total remission. Doing a little gardening, a little watering. I find it very, very therapeutic. And certainly on a day like today, I certainly don't want to have any stress in terms of biking. The ride that I'm going to be taking today will be the longest ride that I've done since before I became sick. Hopefully it'll be motivation for other individuals who've had cancer. Okay, thank you. Wish you luck. Thank you.
My brother is a little ambitious about taking this big ride up to the mountains, to the Catskills. What is it, about 125 miles? That he's going to bike with my son.
My nephew does not know that I have multiple myeloma, or had multiple myeloma. On the ride, he'll be told. Certainly, I do expect that he'll be quite shocked.
It's great, someone his age, someone, just the amount of miles he's put in. I think a big part of it is for himself, to be able to prove that he could do it. So, hope he does.
Wish you luck. Hope you make it.
Oh,
Can I get a send off from you?
Thanks.
Okay. All set.
He's very self-motivated, really. And when he sets his mind to do something, he's going to do it. He was determined to get to medical school. He did. It entailed living in Mexico for 5 years, which was not easy. Languages don't come easily to him. All the classes were in Spanish. But again, he was determined to become a doctor. He did. And in the athletic world, for Father's Day gift, I gave him a bike, almost as a gag. And that was about 28 years ago. And he's been biking ever since.
Well, you gotta understand, to me, his biking altogether is weird. Is very strange. A grown man, being fit enough to do the kind of stuff he's ever done, was strange to me from day one. Way before diagnosis or anything else. Some of us just like to live, and some of us just go through life waiting to respond to things, So Moshe's not one of those responders, he makes other people respond.
As far as I'm concerned, the ride is over. That was the most difficult part, just getting out of the city. The rest is all downhill from here. Jay, how are you? Great to see you. Thank you for joining us. In spite of my good relationship with my good friend Jay Buchsbaum, he does not know that I have multiple myeloma.
Michael, otherwise known as Moshe, is amazing. The guy is 65 years old. He's thin as a rail. I'm here to really support him on any kind of endeavor that he'd like, but especially on something that's so inspirational. It really empowers you, wherever you are. I don't care if you're 15 or 65. It empowers you to say, I can do it.
This is where the men are separated from the boys.
One day I opened the door to the room that Michael was sitting in, and he was had his bicycle with his bicycle shorts and the exercise wear and the helmet. And we don't normally see people coming into the clinic with that.
He kept it very much to himself, and I think the only reason he told me was because he knew I would be seeing the medical bills. I remember when he told me, he was very nonchalant about it. We sat down at the kitchen table, and he just said, I have something I have to tell you. Don't get frightened, don't get scared, and whatever you do, don't go on the internet, and don't do the research, because it's going to blow your mind. Well, of course, I went on the internet and I read all about it. And it was a pretty grim diagnosis.
Multiple myeloma is a cancer of the immune cells in the blood. It also causes bone destruction, deformity, pain, quality of life lost, quantity of life being lost also.
10 to 15 years ago, the median survival would have been less than a couple of years. And so it was often considered a cancer that we could help palliate and maybe help control people's symptoms, but not really do anything definitively about.
I did my own independent research, and all the literature at that point in time stated that it was perhaps a 5-year survival rate, that the treatments were not the best. Basically, when I had the diagnosis, I had assumed that my life or my activity would certainly be curtailed. Okay, got the cashews. You do the cashews, and I'm doing the Milky Way. Candy bar never tasted so good.
Fortunately, there's been a lot of developments in the treatment of this cancer in recent years.
Now we are expecting more than half of the patient living 5 years and longer, and even patients making up to 10 years.
It's a very exciting time in medicine in that therapy advances, improvement in survival rates, and the expectation that people can have a normal quality of life after reasonably short and not so onerous courses of therapy is something which is really quite new and quite remarkable.
Dr. Jagannath given me some literature on the medications, and after reading the literature, my attitude had changed tremendously from being very pessimistic to quite optimistic.
I'm not supposed to break down. Not supposed to happen.
The most difficult part was seeing him suffer. There were certainly some very bad days. I mean, I remember one Friday morning, he literally could not get out of bed. He felt like his whole body was closing down.
The time in which I was getting chemotherapy, on those 2 days, you're right, I was extremely, extremely fatigued. I was having difficulty breathing, and I really had to curtail my activities on those 2 days. However, as the week progressed, I was able to resume my cycling, certainly not to the extent that it was before, but I still was able to do 20 miles without having any real difficulty.
You did 74 miles.
Yeah?
That's right. 74, that's pretty impressive, my friend.
Still nothing. Darn, my body just won't go anymore.
When I tried to be on a group ride, I would be left behind, and certainly I wasn't accustomed to that type of a situation when you're able to ride with a group, and now either you have to depend on the group to wait for you, or you have to decide to go on your own. Those are the times when you really recognize that you're not at the same level.
Patient experience could be argued as being the most important thing for a patient, and something that medical centers like ours have increasingly come to realize is one of the most important things that we can do to improve our relationship. A lot of the problems that we encountered were simple ones of patient access and navigation in turnaround times for laboratory investigations.
The length of time for the entire treatment is going to take most of the day. And when you think about that for 2 years, that's just the amount of time in which you're in the hospital itself, not in terms of the after effects and how tired you are as a result of the medication.
So as we would expect, everything sounds great, and myeloma is only in the background and not affecting anything you do on a day-to-day basis.
No.
That's what we want.
It's very difficult to be a doctor and a patient. You were at the other end of the spectrum. You were there taking care of patients, you were calling the shots. But when you are the physician and you lose all that control, you sit there and nurses say, you have to wait, this, that, etc. That's all somewhat traumatic. In this regard, Michael worked very, very hard with me, and he was able to point out lot of things which could make a big difference.
He was in many ways my first well-educated patient who talked to me about patient experience in the cancer treatment areas. And as such, it was a very important educational experience for me as I began to focus on patient experience in cancer care. And so many things have changed within the past 2 years since I took on this role and since I began speaking with Michael.
He was able to actually track down the time he was wasting and spending and things like that, and give us a time course of his treatment. So patient wait time was being reduced. They improved the communication, the blood draw, sending it to the lab in a prompt way. They actually finally placed a lab in the Ruttenberg Cancer Center, whereby the simple blood count can literally turn around within 15 minutes.
There is no doubt that patient advocacy changed my view of what it meant to be a hospital president. And as a fledgling hospital president in the interim phase, it was extraordinarily helpful to meet Michael and to first experience his energy. The involvement and engagement of a passionate patient advocate is something that goes well beyond what we get based upon survey data and really changes the equation.
I owe a big deal of gratitude to him that he was such a patient advocate while going through his own illness, that he was able to partner with us in a positive way and make a difference in a lot of patients coming for treatment here.
When I had the diagnosis and I recognized that it was treatable, I didn't feel a need that I needed the emotional support. What you usually find is that people start relating to you very, very differently. And that's the one thing that I didn't want.
For me personally, I thought that was sometimes somewhat stressful. I found myself constantly making excuses for him, but that was okay. Again, he wanted to keep it quiet, and I really think most people did not suspect he was ill.
Okay. Now, you both know that I told you that I wanted to do this ride because I'm an altacaca, right? I'm 65. But there's more to it than just that.
What's that?
Well, I'm only at about 60%. You're lucky that I'm only at 60%. You know why?
Why?
I had cancer.
Oh my God.
I've been on chemotherapy for the last 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
And what you're seeing today is called a victory ride. Jay is speechless. You don't know what it means for Jay to be speechless. Jay always has something to say.
During his struggles, he was so strong and so inspiring now in retrospect, you know. I'm also, I have to tell you, I'm also very touched because I'm like the first one that knows, so that kind of like, I feel like it kind of makes me and puts me in a special kind of category for them. I'm the first one that knows it's not family.
Sol and I had become very, very good friends when he moved into this community. So he was one of the individuals that I did not tell that I had multiple myeloma, regardless of our friendship. I hadn't seen him in a while, and it came to the Purim of this year that he came over. He said, you know, I have something to tell you. So my wife and I are looking at him. What is it that you have to tell us? You know, is it another child who's getting married? Is some difficulty in the family?
I assumed Moshe knew, which he didn't. I see him and his wife, him in the, you know, standing at the, you know, inside his hallway, and I said, you know, I'm sorry I didn't call you back, but you know I'm not well. I said, what are you talking about? They looked at me like I'm crazy because they didn't know. They say, well, what is it? So I said, oh, okay, it's myeloma. What? And I looked at their face, and I knew that second, I knew when he asked me all those questions, I said, this is way too close to home here. And he said, oh, I have the same thing. I said, I couldn't believe it. I said, what are the odds? So when you know down the block, but not only does he have the same thing, he's seeing the same doctors.
The purpose of the ride is not only for myself, but to prove to others that just because you have multiple myeloma, does that mean that it's a death sentence? One should only consider this as a temporary setback. My nephew, when he saw in terms what I had to go through to get to this point, as well as seeing his uncle doing it in spite of all the different challenges, I think that certainly did inspire him to get back. And as a matter of fact, he's stronger now than it was before.
To see someone who's finished the amount of chemo, and it's the same medication that I'm taking on a low dose, and to think that he's done with it and that's it, is very hopeful and very helpful. To know that it doesn't necessarily mean that after the medication I'm taking, you're going to be drawn backwards. That you can see a case right in front of your face that's forward and not backwards. So it's tremendously helpful, tremendously hopeful.
And now that I've defeated multiple myeloma, I decided to resume speed skating again. And for me, it's very invigorating to say that I'm able to do things now that I wasn't even doing before I had multiple myeloma. When you get on the ice, you can either fall over the place or you get a pair of good ice skates and you skate through life. The three most important items to be able to get through this period of time is, number one, it's important for you to exercise. Not only does that help you physically, but it helps your mental state. The other part is maintaining the good, balanced diet, and certainly having the support of your family and friends, in addition to have a certain faith and believe that there is a being that's going to be watching over you and that eventually you'll be taken care of.
We will expect, over the next 3-4 years, hopefully half of the patient will make it to 10 years rather than losing half of the patients by 5 years. This will be a dramatic difference. And some people say we are trying to make multiple myeloma, even if we don't cure it in majority of patients, at least it becomes a chronic, treatable illness.
I look at it very differently than he does. I look at it very personally. Fortunately, I look at myself as being in total remission. I don't look at this as being a chronic illness. At this point in time, I'm not on any other medication. I'm not on chemotherapy. I'm able to resume my activities. So in terms of myself, I think I'm one of the few, again, I don't know what the numbers are, but I can say that I'm fortunate that I can say I'm more or less that this illness has been defeated. Then how do you get to Cold Spring?
Last leg
That hit the
so
spot.
Dehydrated.
Well, we got to the part where it got dark. I was upset at myself because I wasn't going fast enough and I wasn't there by 6 p.m.
Guy survives cancer and then 65 years old is riding 120 freaking miles. If you stop right now, it would be a miracle.
So 6 more miles, huh?
Yeah, 6 or 8.
Oh, 8?
No,
Thanks.
6. Don't worry, you got it.
Okay. I feel bad that I'm taking so long. You have no concept of time. You have no concept of where you're really located. So even though everybody behind was yelling, oh, you only have 6 miles to go, okay, it still becomes very disoriented because here I'm traveling. I have no idea how fast I'm going. And I'm saying to myself, but I thought I only had 3 miles to go.
He, in his own way, wants to contribute so that it'll be inspirational and make a difference in another patient with myeloma, that they will be upbeat and they will go after the cancer. And moreover, we may all die someday, and you as a patient may lose the battle to the cancer. But let us talk today about living. One day the cancer gets very nasty and you have to lose the battle, you lose the battle, but you don't lose the battle the day one you are diagnosed with a cancer. And that's where Dr. Engelberg's, this kind of an effort goes a long way.
We had this conversation together, and I was saying, I'm thinking about just not going into my practice anymore. I'm done. He says, "Are you crazy?" And he really went crazy. Like, you can't do that. You've got to go in and go earn a living. Go do what you got to do. The fact that he was so positive and is so positive about how he deals with his disease, I've had to incorporate it in what I do personally myself.
Coming in to Monticello, there was a certain sense of relief and enjoyment and excitement all occurring at the same time. This ride for me was a celebration of life, and certainly God is a good part of my life. I think in terms of what got me through this was my faith, both in God, I think my faith in myself, my faith in my family. So I think it was proper that this is the way the ride should end, really going to a synagogue and really saying, thank God that not only was I healed, but I'm in a position now to be able to complete such a victorious ride.
I had multiple myeloma. I continued to cycle during that period of time, even though it was difficult. And what you're seeing now is my...
That's a miracle.
What? Yeah, it's a miracle.